Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Succulents have many varieties, various shapes, rich colors, and are easy to maintain, so they are loved by many people. They not only beautify your environment and purify the air, they can also bring us peace and serenity in our busy lives. However, if you want succulents to grow healthily, it is not as simple as placing them randomly and watering them occasionally. If you want to grow succulents well, getting them to an ideal state will require a bit more care. In this video, I want to discuss with you in detail the best cultivation methods and some precautions to take when growing succulents. I will share my personal experiences in detail, covering subjects such as the containers used for planting succulents, finding suitable soil, the best levels of light, temperature, humidity, watering, and fertilization, how to propagate and prune them, and the necessary pest and disease control. So, let's get into it and discuss how to grow succulents to make them present the most beautiful and brightest colors. If you are a novice and don't know much about succulents, you need to know that succulents are not just simply green or blue. Succulents can have vivid colors such as red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, black, and white. Succulents can also have different dark patterns, red centers, stone-like appearances, fasciation, etc. I think succulents are particularly interesting plants, with a diverse array of species, many of which are amazing and worth growing. Whether you are a novice or have some experience, I believe that this video will be helpful to you. If you like this video, please thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with more flower enthusiasts. Now, let's talk about succulents in detail. 1. Choose the right container. The root systems of succulent plants are relatively delicate, and they have high requirements for drainage. Therefore, when choosing a planting container, you must choose a pot or container with drainage holes at the bottom of the pot to ensure that excess water does not pool. I often see some people who use solid containers to grow succulents. Some of these containers are more beautiful, and you don't have to worry about water overflowing and dirtying the table while watering. However, it is difficult to precisely gauge and control the amount of water that you add to such containers, and mistakes can easily lead to water accumulation in the pot. This will cause root rot in the long run, which is often fatal by the time it's noticed. Therefore, containers without drainage holes are not recommended. The material of the container can be ceramic, soil, purple sand, plastic, etc. Most flower pots can be used to grow succulents. However, pots made of materials such as plastic or glass have strong moisture retention, so the frequency of watering should be relatively low. Ceramic or clay pots have good air permeability, so the frequency of watering ought to be higher. In general, it is recommended to use ceramic or clay pots, which are more beautiful and breathable. Plastic pots are generally used in mass succulent production because they are cheap and won't break if dropped. The size of the flower pot should be adjusted to suit the size of the succulent. If you want the succulent to grow bigger, you can use a slightly larger pot. If you want to restrict the growth of a succulent, you can use a smaller pot. In general, the pot should not be too large or too small. 2. Prepare the right soil. Succulents like loose, breathable, and well-drained soil. There are special soils for succulents on the market, which can be purchased and used directly, saving you a lot of work. We can also mix our own soil. According to the recommendations of professionals, in most cases, 70% inorganic particles can be mixed with 30% of peat moss. 70% of the particles include lava rock, mayfanstone, green zeolite, perlite, and akadama. Coarse particles between 3 to 6 mm can be used in areas with humid climates. Fine particles between 1 to 3 mm can be used in areas with dry climates. Of course, we can also adjust the ratio of particles to peat moss appropriately according to the local climate. For example, in areas with humid climates, 80% of particles and 20% of peat moss can be used. In areas with dry climates, 60% of particles and 40% of peat moss can be used. I use a ratio of 7 to 3, that is, 70% of the particles are mixed with 30% of the peat moss, and then it can be used to grow succulents. We can also use an appropriate amount of coconut bran, coarse sand, and other such materials to increase the airiness and drainage of the soil. 3. Succulent growth habits. Light is one of the key factors for succulent growth. Most succulents like plenty of sunlight, but strong direct light in summer will burn the leaves, so the light intensity needs to be adjusted according to different seasons and varieties. In spring and autumn, succulents can be placed on the balcony or windowsill to receive natural light all day long. In early summer, they need to be properly shaded to avoid strong direct sunlight at noon. In winter, the light time needs to be increased, and grow lights can be considered to make up for any lack of natural light. Some variegated succulents with white or yellow colors should avoid direct strong light. These succulents have low requirements for light due to a lack of pigmentation, and strong direct light can easily burn the leaves. The suitable growing temperature range for most succulents is between 5–30 degrees Celsius, and extreme temperatures will negatively affect their growth. If the temperature is too high in summer, shade and ventilation should be increased to reduce it. When the temperature is higher than 35 degrees Celsius, succulents go dormant and grow slowly. At this time, the frequency of watering should be reduced. In winter, frostburn needs to be prevented. As long as the temperature is above 0 degrees Celsius, there is no problem on this front. Succulents are drought-resistant and hate to be waterlogged. Watering should err on the side of caution. It's better to underwater than to overwater. The pot should be completely dry before you water the plant again. Once the soil surface is completely dry, water it very thoroughly. This way you can avoid frequent, small waterings which cause the soil to remain too wet for too long. When watering, water slowly along the edge of the pot to avoid pouring water directly on the leaves. This helps to prevent rot. You can also place succulents on a tray filled with water. The soil in the flower pot will absorb water from the bottom. This method is simple and convenient. It allows you to avoid wetting the leaves and prevents rot caused by improper watering. Most succulent nurseries use this immersion method. However, properly gauge the amount of water so that once the pots are saturated, there isn't a significant amount of water remaining in the tray. In addition, you should also pay attention to the weather conditions. Watering should be reduced or suspended in rainy weather when humidity is high. When the temperature is too low or too high and the succulents are in a dormant state, the frequency of watering should also be reduced. Maintaining a well-ventilated environment is also key to the healthy growth of succulents. Poor ventilation can easily lead to the proliferation of pests and diseases. After we first installed our small greenhouse, the ventilation was poor and the humidity was high. Some succulent leaves stayed wet and some succulents even developed mold. Later, we installed electric fans in the greenhouse and used dehumidifiers to reduce the humidity of the air, which effectively inhibited the growth of mold. In the process of growing succulents, we must pay attention to airflow and humidity. Try to provide a well-ventilated environment while reducing humidity. Succulents do not require heavy feeding, and newly planted succulents do not need to be fertilized in order to establish themselves. After succulents have been established for a few years, if you find that one is growing slowly, you can apply some dilute liquid fertilizers during their vigorous growth period, spring and autumn, such as succulent specialty fertilizers, diluted normal fertilizers, or some slow-release fertilizers. When succulents grow too large and need to be repotted, they should be repotted in spring or autumn. When repotting, you need to trim off old and diseased roots, and refresh the soil before replanting into a slightly larger pot to promote plant growth. 4. Propagation and pruning of succulents. Succulents can be propagated in various ways, including leaf cuttings, division, stem cuttings, etc. Among these, leaf cuttings are the simplest and most commonly used propagation method. Just remove healthy and full leaves, allow the cut to callus over, and spread them flat on a slightly moist soil surface. Keep the soil slightly moist and place your cuttings in a ventilated, lightly shaded area. After about half a month to a month, the base of the leaves may take root and sprout, and grow into tiny new plants. For some succulents that are easy to propagate, we can cut a healthy stem, allow the cut to dry, and then insert it into moist soil to wait for rooting. A clump of succulents can also be divided by separating smaller ones from the mother plant and planting them separately. It should be noted here that, although leaf cuttings are the most commonly used method for succulent propagation, some varieties of succulents cannot be propagated this way. For example, variegated cotyledons need to be propagated via stem cuttings. In order to maintain the beautiful shape of succulents, we also need to prune them regularly. For example, pruning can maintain the round, compact, and tree-like shape of this chrysanthemum. Sometimes, due to frequent watering or poor light, succulents tend to grow too long. This is known as etiolation. We can also prune these to remove those overly long branches, which can be used for propagation. 5. Disease and pest control of succulents. Although succulents are relatively easy to maintain, they are also susceptible to diseases and pests, especially when the growth environment is not ideal and the resistance of plants is reduced. Common diseases and pests include scale insects, aphids, black rot, powdery mildew, mealybugs, etc. Therefore, it is necessary to regularly check the growth status of succulents and deal with diseases and pests in time once they are found. For leaves and plants that have been infected with diseases and pests, they should be cut off or isolated in time and treated with appropriate agents. Minor pests and diseases can be treated with physical methods, such as wiping with a cotton swab dipped in isopropyl alcohol, or biological pesticides. If the situation is serious, chemical pesticides should be used for prevention and control, but attention should be paid to the method and concentration of use to avoid harming the plants. Some succulent nurseries often use carbendazim to deal with pests and diseases. I am very reluctant to use fungicides because in the process of use, it is inevitable to cause harm to the human body or pets at home. We should prevent the occurrence of pests and diseases by providing good light and suitable temperature, avoiding long-term wet potting media, and increasing ventilation. For common scale insect and mealybug infections, you can spray the surface of succulents with water-diluted mineral oil, which is more environmentally friendly and less hazardous than pesticides. 6. How to make succulents present bright colors. Succulents often present different colors according to their current environment. If you buy a pot of brightly colored succulents, bring it home, and grow it for a while, you will find that the color gradually fades. While it may seem like you've been defrauded, the fault likely lies with your growing environment and can be easily remedied. So why do succulents change color? The answer to this question is related to the three main pigments in succulents. These three pigments are chlorophyll, anthocyanins, and carotenoids. They will change and present different proportions under different environmental conditions, thus affecting the color of succulents. Chlorophyll is an essential substance for plants to carry out photosynthesis. It can absorb solar energy and convert water and carbon dioxide into organic matter and oxygen. Chlorophyll is very important for succulents. If you want your succulents to grow faster, it is best to make its leaves greener. Chlorophyll absorbs red and blue light in visible light and reflects green light, so the chlorophyll we see is green. Chlorophyll is less stable and will be broken down with changes in temperature, light, moisture, and other factors. Therefore, we can use this feature to reduce the synthesis and maintenance of chlorophyll, so that your succulents will become more colorful. Anthocyanins are natural pigments widely found in plants. They can present different colors such as red, purple, and blue. Anthocyanins will appear red in an acidic environment, purple-red in a neutral environment, and blue in an alkaline environment. This is the secret of many of those colorful succulents. When there is an excess of sunlight, anthocyanin synthesis increases, acting as a sunshade on the surface of the leaves to protect the internal mesophyll tissue from sunburn. When there is not enough sunlight, the anthocyanins on the surface of the succulent leaves will be actively broken down, so that more sunlight can come in. This is how anthocyanins regulate the sunlight that enters deep into the leaves. In order to color succulents, we need more anthocyanins, so we should provide plenty of sunlight. When the intensity of sunlight exceeds the light saturation point of succulents, the maximum light intensity required for plants to photosynthesize, anthocyanins will be synthesized and the succulents will gradually color. Carotenoids are a general term for a large class of plant pigments. There are at least dozens of different carotenoids in Crassulaceae succulents. The color of carotenoids is not necessarily orange. They can also show a variety of bright colors such as yellow, beige, red, purple, etc. The chemical properties of carotenoids are mostly stable and they not easily destroyed. Carotenoids are present in large quantities in every cell of succulent leaves along with chlorophyll. They mainly take on the task of photosynthesis when chlorophyll is lacking, but also protect the molecular apparatus of photosynthesis from oxidation during periods of stress, including cold stress. Because of this, their concentration increases in cold conditions as the plant prepares for possible cold stress, while chlorophyll is broken down. As the concentration of carotenoids becomes high relative to that of chlorophyll, succulents will show beautiful colors. After understanding the three pigments that affect the color of succulents, let's talk about the 4 conditions for coloring succulents. 1. Sufficient sunlight. Strong light, especially ultraviolet light, can promote the synthesis of anthocyanins to protect light-sensitive chlorophyll. When the chlorophyll in succulents decreases and anthocyanins increase, succulents will show bright colors. The total amount of sunlight will also affect the synthesis and decomposition of chlorophyll. If the total amount of sunlight is insufficient, succulents will become green or liver red, referring to the dark red or purple-red layer on the epidermis of succulent leaves. Therefore, we need to maintain light for about 8 hours. The intensity and total amount of light have an impact on the color of succulents. Of course, succulents should not be exposed to noon sun in early summer. Otherwise, the intense sun can burn the leaves. Sufficient light should be given in spring, autumn and winter. In winter, when there is insufficient light or it is rainy, you can use grow lights to provide sufficient light. 2. Large temperature differences. Temperature differences will accelerate the decomposition of chlorophyll. When there is a lack of chlorophyll, carotenoids, which are more stable than chlorophyll, will take on the task of photosynthesis. If the concentration of carotenoids is relatively high, succulents will show beautiful colors. The carotenoids in Crassulaceae succulents are generally more elegant, mostly yellow, light yellow, or pink. In certain succulents, this can produce what we call jelly color, referring to the transparent luster of the epidermis of succulent leaves. The temperature difference also has a certain effect on anthocyanins. If the temperature at night is relatively low, the succulents will be in a slow growth state. The slower the succulents grow, the less sunlight they need. This means that they will be more likely to reach the light saturation point and start synthesizing anthocyanins to block excess light. There is plenty of sunshine in the summer, but the succulents in the summer stay green. One of the reasons for this is that succulents are very active under high temperatures, and they will seize every opportunity to grow. In this case, they have a higher demand for sunlight. The sunlight that was originally enough to color in winter may not be enough in summer. Therefore, with the same temperature difference of 10 degrees Celsius, 5 degrees Celsius to 15 degrees Celsius, and 20 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius, their coloring effects will be different. Generally speaking, the greater the temperature difference, the brighter the succulents will become and the richer the color will be. 3. Proper water control. Nitrogen is an essential element for the synthesis of chlorophyll. Water control can reduce the absorption of nitrogen in the soil, thereby reducing the synthesis of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is unstable. If new chlorophyll is difficult to synthesize, the original chlorophyll will gradually be broken down, and the green leaves of succulents will gradually fade to other colors. Therefore, water control can help the green fade. Water control is a double-edged sword. Proper control can help improve the appearance of succulents, but excessive use can be very harmful. Remember that the key to water control is control. It does not mean never watering your plants. Some may find that the color of succulents improves significantly after they stopped watering, and they will continue to extend the time between waterings like an addiction, which will eventually lead to problems such as dull leaf color and root withering. Sometimes they will accidentally control the succulents to death. Succulents are drought-resistant and do not require much water, but severe hydric stress can cause the plant to shut down. Simply wait till the soil is completely dry before watering, and accept that during the active growth period your succulents will be green. If you stop watering a normal plant, the leaves will also turn colors and look interesting for a bit, but then it will die. 4. Poor soil. However, improper water control can lead to serious problems. We can use other methods to replace water control, because our goal is to control the absorption of nitrogen. For example, when mixing soil, we can use more particles to replace organic substrates such as peat and leaf humus. We can also use more precise foliar fertilizers instead of base fertilizers, so that the supply of nitrogen can be carefully calibrated. Therefore, if you want your succulents to grow green, you might as well apply some foliar nitrogen fertilizer. If you want your succulents to be in good condition, it is very important to keep the soil poor. Growing succulents is not only an exercise of technique, but also a soothing hobby. By mastering these tips and tricks, I believe you will be able to easily grow your favorite succulents. I hope this video can help you. If you have other questions or comments, please leave a message below. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.